Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very fun catch cup video for you guys. I used a single move Skarmory and Hurricane Dragonite. I had so much fun with these Pokemon and I went 4-1 and then after that I got a 5-0 with the team. But of course, I wasn't recording. All the fun stuff always happens when I'm not recording. But I did manage to regain all of the points that I lost in the lose streak that I showed you guys in the previous video. And the next day, I decided to use the team again and try to record as many battles as I could with the team, and I got a lot of really nice wins. So I'm going to share those with you guys today. By the way, the Skarmory that I'm using is single moved, and I caught it in the wild at 1498 CP, so it was already ready to use for GBL. I didn't spend a single drop of Stardust on this cup, as I said in the previous video. So let's get into these battles. I have some really fun ones for you guys today. By the way, the games are not in the order that I played them in. I have some from today, some from yesterday, and some from the day before, but I just picked my favorite ones. And up first, I'm going to show you guys probably one of my favorite battles of all time. We're going to be up against a double first, and they go for a wild charge and I no-shield it on our Skarmory. It's okay, I'm going to go for a Sky Attack now, and this should KO if my opponent does not shield, but of course they go ahead and shield, and I'm going to go ahead and catch the next move on my Decidueye. Now they do decide to throw a Body Slam, that's okay, it is double resisted by Decidueye because of that ghost typing, and then my opponent brings in a Gligar. They let me get to the Frenzy Plant. It looks like they were trying to double up on the Aerial Aces. Now they can take my Decidueye out and immediately throw an Aerial Ace on my Skarmory and take us out as well. Now, I'm going to bring in Dragonite, and my opponent has a Shadow Skarmory in the back. Here's my 1-1 condition. My opponent thinks I have superpower, so I'm going to go ahead and bait here with a Dragon Claw, take their final shield, and I needed them to try to catch the superpower that they don't know that I don't have on their double, which is exactly what they do, and I'm able to farm the double all the way down, have a Hurricane stored for the Skarmory, and take the Skarmory out with a resisted move. GG's to our opponent, we're able to take that win. Moving on to the next match, we're going to be met on the lead with an Oinkolon. I think that's how it's pronounced. I hope that's how it's pronounced. I'm sorry if it's not. But Skarmory is absolutely going to wall this thing. It has access to Body Slam and Dig, which Skarmory resists, and the fast move is also resisted. It is going to be Tackle. Now my opponent swaps into a Charge-a-Bug, and I'm going to have to bring in Dragonite here, but I think the better play would be to bring in Decidueye because Decidueye is at least going to be resisting the fast move, and then it can take an X-Scissor and shield the second X-Scissor. However, I go ahead, I invest a shield in that matchup. I'm able to actually win that with Dragonite, and then I bring my Skarmory back into this Piggy. I'm just gonna call it Piggy. I don't know what it's, or I don't know how to pronounce its name. My opponent has a Gligar, another Pokemon that Skarmory also walls. I'm gonna go for these Sky Attacks against this Gligar, take both of my opponent's shields, and then I'm going to let whatever this is go. This is Dig. I have a shield left. I know that I can take this Gligar out with a Frenzy Plant, so I'm gonna go ahead and shield my Decidueye. Go for a, actually I go for a Spirit Shackle because my opponent had 2 Aerial Aces here. Thankfully, the Spirit Shackle KOs, and my Decidueye is going to wall the Piggy as well, so my opponent top lefts. Moving on to the next match, it looks like we're just going to be walling our opponent. They lead Decidueye into our Skarmory, and then they bring in a Frostlass, and Frostlass is not an answer to Skarmory, especially since we are running Steel Wing. Now my opponent goes ahead and shields the first Sky Attack. Now, I did shield the first Avalanche. I'm not going to shield the second one. I should be able to take the Frostlass out with just the Steel Wings. And then let's see what my opponent decides to bring in next. They bring in a Lantern. I immediately swap into Dragonite, but of course my opponent isn't going to bring their Decidueye into this Dragonite, but because they went ahead and shielded the Dragon Claw, I'm okay with letting the Dragonite go here. They let me get to another Dragon Claw. I'm able to get them really low, and then I bring in my Decidueye. I still have a shield left. My opponent has no shields left. I'm gonna go for the Spirit Shackle. It puts my opponent really low. I'm gonna go ahead and safely shield my Decidueye, and then I should be able to take them out with just the Leafage. My opponent has a move stored on Lantern. They're gonna go ahead and take us out with a Surf, but it's okay because I have a move on Skarmory, I'm going to be able to take their Lantern out and take that game. GG's to our opponent. Now moving on to the next match, there are a few Pokemon that this entire team kind of struggles against as a whole, and Alolan Sandslash is one of them. Unfortunately, I'm going to be facing one. Now I have to try to take the Alolan Sandslash out with my Skarmory, and they almost always go ahead and shield the first Sky Attack. I am going to go ahead and shield the next move because I want to throw that second Sky Attack, and now either I'm going to take their final shield from them, or they are going to let the Sandslash go. They let the Sandslash go. Now here, I probably should have just let them farm me down completely with Altaria and then bring in Dragonite, because now their Azu is aligned to my Dragonite, and their Altaria is going to be aligned to my Decidueye. It was a tough situation for me anyway, because Altaria with a ton of energy would be able to reach 2 moves on Dragonite, and I don't think Dragonite would have been able to handle Altaria on its own. I would have then had to bring my Decidueye into this Altaria, and I don't think I would have won it either way. So my opponent is going to take that win. Not going to be able to win this. GG's to our opponent. But on to the next match, we see another Alolan Sandslash lead. Now let's see if we have any better luck with this team composition. Again, gonna go ahead and stay in and play this out the way I played it before. I let the first move go. I go for a Sky Attack, my opponent shields, and then I'm gonna have to shield the second move if I want to reach another Sky Attack. So I go ahead and I invest my first shield, go for another Sky Attack, and then let's see if my opponent decides to shield or not. They don't. We're able to take them out with a Skarmory, and my opponent brings in a Jellicent. Now I swap out immediately from my Skarmory because I don't want my opponent to farm me down and have a lot of energy. Jellicent with energy is very tricky for Decidueye to deal with. What they can do is they can farm up to, or they could do 8 hexes, and then they'll have a Surf and a Shadow Ball loaded. What they can do then is bait with the Surf and then throw the Shadow Ball immediately and take Decidueye out, and that's what a lot of my opponents were doing in previous games. But in this game, I was able to call that they were going to throw the Shadow Ball, shield that successfully, but then my opponent has a Clodsire in the back. Now what I'm going to do is bring in Skarmory and take all the energy on my Skarmory, and then I just have to hope that I can reach the Dragon Claw as my opponent is going to reach a Stone Edge. We're able to take them out, and then my opponent top lefts because they just have a 1 HP Jellicent left in the back. Now my opponent could have caught the Dragon Claw on their Jellicent, but because my opponent was going to reach the Stone Edge right there, I couldn't risk it. I just went ahead and threw my Dragon Claw immediately, but my opponent definitely had a win condition there. GG's to our opponent. Now moving on to the next match, we are going to face another Pokemon that is very tricky for this team to deal with. We are ABA weak to Skeledirge, and actually we're ABA weak to Fire. So I bring in my Dragonite against the Skeledirge. We are able to take a shield from them with the Dragon Claw, and I decide here to shield the Moonblast. I'm not expecting my opponent to shield a Dragon Claw, so I go straight for the Hurricane. We're able to take the Cresselia out, and then my opponent has to bring I guess Skeledirge back in here, or else they would have to reveal their third Pokemon. Luckily, they do bring in Skeledirge. I'm able to get it very low. Now I can bring in Skarmory and take whatever energy my opponent is going to throw. It is going to be a Shadow Ball, but we are able to farm the Skeledirge down, and my opponent quits. They have a Porygon 2 in the back, which is such an interesting pick, but good games to our opponent. On to the next match, we are going to be met with an Annihilate Bleed. Now, I don't like to stay in with Skarmory against Annihilate Bleeds because Annihilate actually does really well against it. And I swap into my Dragonite, and my opponent has a Shadow Alolan Ninetales in the back. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to reach a Hurricane against this thing, so I just go for the Dragon Claw, and then I farm it down with the Skarmory so that I could have all of this energy that I can throw on Annihilate then. At least I'm able to take a shield from them. Now I'm expecting Night Slash here. It is a Night Slash. We survive with 1 HP, and then I swap out immediately into my Decidueye. Now unfortunately my opponent is going to have a Lickitung in the back, and they still have a shield left. I have both of my shields left as well. I'm going to go ahead and double shield my Decidueye, but my opponent has enough energy on their Annihilate for another Night Slash, and I have only 1 shield left. So I'm going to go ahead and shield here, and then they are going to be able to reach another one. I wasn't able to catch on my Skarmory because my switch timer still wasn't up, so we are not going to be able to take that win. GG's. On to the next match, we're going to be met with another Annihilate lead. I really don't like this lead. Again, going to swap into my Dragonite. This time they stay in and they go for an Ice Punch. I go ahead and I shield, and then my opponent brings in a Mantine. Now, because I had energy from the Annihilate matchup, I'm able to reach a Hurricane. They let it go, and we're able to take the Mantine out. Now they're going to bring Annihilate back in. I'm going to be able to reach a Dragon Claw, take a shield from them, and then they're able to farm us down, unfortunately, but I am going to be able to take that energy on Skarmory. Again, Skarmory is pretty bulky, so it can take all of the energy that Decidueye will not be able to take. And my opponent has a Whiscash in the back, so GG's to our opponent. We were easily going to be able to wall it with our Decidueye. Moving on, we are finally seeing a good lead. It is going to be Wigglytuff into our Skarmory, and my opponent swaps in Gligar. Gligar is not an answer to Skarmory. Again, Skarmory is going to be walling Gligar because Gligar only has access to flying moves and ground type moves. Now, it could have access to Night Slash, but a lot of people are not going to be running it with Night Slash. We're able to actually catch the dig on our Dragonite. Now I decide here to double shield my Dragonite and farm the Gligar completely because I really want to land a Hurricane on the Wigglytuff. Now I'm able to reach the Hurricane. Let's see if my opponent lets it go. They do. It does so much damage, and my opponent has a Whiscash in the back. This was complete RPS for our opponent. There is nothing they're going to be able to do against our Decidueye in the back, so GG's to our opponent. We're able to take that win and land a really nice Hurricane on a Fairy type. On to the next battle. Again, we are going to see that Annihilate on the lead. Annihilate on the lead. Again, very annoying lead. And every time I put like a Wigglytuff on the lead that should wall Annihilate, I never saw it. So that's what we have to deal with, and my opponent has a Shadow Skarmory in the back. So unfortunate. They are able to take our Dragonite out with the Shadow Skarmory and have a lot of energy for our own Skarmory. Now they're going to go for a Sky Attack and then go for a Brave Bird. I don't think I'll be able to farm the Skarmory down completely, so I'm going to have to go for a Sky Attack and take them out. And then I have enough energy for a Sky Attack for the Annihilate. So we're going to throw that and take their final shield, and then I bring in my Decidueye, and unfortunately I have to take whatever move they're going to throw here. It is an Ice Punch, and it does so much damage. Decidueye is very squishy, and my opponent has a Gligar in the back. This team really struggles against this double flyer team, and I've been seeing this double flyer team everywhere. A lot of people are running this Gligar and Skarmory backline, and that really does well against the team that I'm running. On to the next match, we're going to be met with a Skarmory on the lead. This is actually where we want to see it because unfortunately, Skarmory is my only answer to Skarmory. My backline's not that great against Skarmory, but my opponent swaps out of their Skarmory into Lantern, and I'm thinking they're trying to draw out the Decidueye here, or the Grass type if I have a Grass type, and I'm guessing they might have a Whiscash in the back. Skarmory double water makes sense. You have the Skarmory for the grass types, and then you have two Pokemon in the back that are going to be weak to grass. So it made sense in my head. I'm just hoping that it is a Whiscash because then that means my Dragonite can technically wall it, even though Scald will do a lot of damage to it as if it's neutral. So I am able to take the Lantern out with our Decidueye, and then I bring Skarmory back into their Skarmory. We're able to take it out, and my opponent has a Whiscash, as I expected in the back. I let the first move go, and then I'm just going to go ahead and shield whatever this next move is. It is a Mud Bomb, but I should be able to Dragon Breath the Whiscash down completely before it can reach 2 more moves. I'm going to go ahead and safely shield here. My opponent will not be able to reach another move because they went for that Scald. So GG's to our opponent, we're able to take that win. Now, while you're watching me catch this really nice Cresselia reward that I got from GBL, I just want to say that I actually don't recommend this team. It doesn't have a safe swap. It's weak to a lot of things. It's also going to be weak to Dugong. And yeah, it just has a lot of weaknesses. But again, this is Catch Cup, so I was just using whatever I had. On to the next match, we're going to be met with a Shadow Dragonair on the lead. This is actually a very good lead. Skarmory can survive 2 Aqua Tails from this Shadow Dragonair and reach 2 Sky Attacks. Now, of course, they're going to go ahead and shield the first one, so we're able to take a shield from them. And then I'm going to no-shield this next Aqua Tail, and watch this. We're able to live it with very little HP, and we have that Sky Attack, so we're able to throw it on the Dragonair and take them out. But my opponent has a Shadow Skarmory in the back, and as I said, I don't have an answer to this. So I'm just going to bring in my Shadow Dragonite, and I go for a Dragon Claw here. My opponent no-shields it. I should have committed to the Hurricane because I think Hurricane would have put it really close to KOing. I think it might have KO'd from that range, especially since they're both Shadow. But they are going to be able to take our final shield with the Sableye, and Sableye is going to be doing very well against Decidueye. I'm going to go for a Spirit Shackle on this Skarmory, but they still had a shield up, so there was basically nothing we could do. I wish I had committed to that Hurricane, but GG's to our opponent. We are going to lose that game. But on to the next match, we're going to be met with another Shadow Dragonair. Again, going to play this out how I played it before. I'm going to let the first Aqua Tail go, and then I'm going to go for a Sky Attack, take their first shield, and then farm up to another Sky Attack, and we should be able to easily live another Aqua Tail. Now this time, instead of farming up, they throw it immediately, so I live with a little more HP, but I'm still able to reach that second Sky Attack, and my opponent actually invests both of their shields into this Dragonair. And this is going to be really good for me because that means I'm going to be able to land a Hurricane on whatever I want to land the Hurricane on. Now, I really wanted to go for that Hurricane on this Lickitung, but my opponent swaps out into a Lantern. I'm going to bring in Decidueye. Decidueye is going to Wall Lantern, and I'm just going to go for... Oh, I could have gone for a move, but my opponent decides to top left and save me some time. So GG's to our opponent. Moving on, we're going to see a Mantine lead. Now, Mantine lead is pretty, it's not neutral. I definitely win this with Skarmory because I can survive 2 Ice Beams, and the Steel Wings are actually going to be doing more damage to the Mantine than the Wing Attacks are doing to the Skarmory. So I should be able to live 2 Ice Beams very easily, and then I'll go for 2 Sky Attacks against this Mantine, and I believe the next one is enough to take it out. It is, and my opponent has a Trevenant in the back. I immediately swap into my Dragonite. I probably should have just let them farm my Skarmory down, honestly, but I swap into Dragonite, I get wrecked by Wigglytuff, and then I just top left because Wigglytuff is going to wreck my Decidueye. But moving on, we're going to see a very nice lead of Shadow Victory Bell into our Skarmory. Skarmory is absolutely going to wall Shadow Victory Bell. They bring in a Whiscash, and I bring in Decidueye, and they just top left. Gotta love a quick RPS game. Moving on to the next game, we are going to see a Skarmory on the lead. Again, very boring lead, and I do not have Brave Bird to hit it for a little more damage than the Sky Attack, but that's okay. I actually like being restricted to the Sky Attack because I'm not going to be debuffing myself, and a lot of times my opponent will think I'm throwing a Brave Bird and will shield, and I'm actually just throwing Sky Attack because that's all I have. And it works out for me, but I'm going to go ahead and no-shield this. I know it's Brave Bird, and I know that Brave Bird is going to take me out, but I like to have a little bit of an energy lead on my Dragonite, especially if I'm going to attempt to land a Hurricane. Now my opponent brings in an Annihilate into our Dragonite. This is actually okay. I'm going to go ahead and shield whatever this first move is. I was able to take a shield from them with the first Dragon Claw, and then the second Dragon Claw takes their final shield. Now I decide to let my Dragonite go and bring in my Decidueye and farm them down completely. And I have to shield this Night Slash because it's boosted, but my opponent has a Whiscash in the back. So we're going to be able to wall it with our Decidueye and take that win. Good game to our opponent. That is going to be giving us 3 wins in that set, a positive set to end off the video with, and we get a shiny Gligar as a reward. But guys, that brings us to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!